Dr. Glenn Fleisig is the research director of the American Sports Medicine Institute. He's an injury advisor to Major League Baseball. He was a key figure in MLB's recent report on pitching injuries, which was released in December. Now, Dr. Fleisig was at the recent Sabre Analytics Conference. I was there to hear his presentation on his experimentation of a heavier baseball and or a larger baseball. Might be extreme when you hear about a heavier baseball, but think of the recent innovations in the game. Pitch timer, stolen base incentives, shift restrictions. It's possible to tinker with the game and make vast improvements. With pitcher injuries, record-breaking strikeout rates, ball not in play, a heavier baseball, something to consider. We welcome in Dr. Glenn Fleisig. Dr. Fleisig, Brian Kenny here. Great to have you on the show.
Ryan, great to see you again.
I really enjoyed your presentation at Sabre. I wonder if people saw the import of what you were saying. So let's start with this. The report on pitching injuries that was put out by Major League Baseball, it was comprehensive, basically saying, you fill us in, velocity, stuff, plays, and it pays. So what is your view on the state of pitching in the majors now, the max effort revolution?
You know, you and I, we had this conversation before, even a year ago, exactly the same conversation, and it's still the same. This report confirms what we were talking about a year ago, which is that most people believe that today's pitchers are bigger and stronger and throwing faster, that's a fact, and having more injuries, that's a fact, and that the throwing harder is, there you see the velocity is going up, the throwing harder is correlated to more stress on the UCL, the Tommy John ligament, and the ligaments can't handle it.
We see velo increasing there. We see Tommy John surgeries increasing like every 5 years. You see the increase there. So I want to get right to it, Doc. Give us your idea on the possibility of changing the baseball itself. What would that do?
Well, okay, so we did an experiment. We had these 4 baseballs. We have a regular 5-ounce baseball, a 5% larger 5-ounce baseball, a 6-ounce baseball, and a 6-ounce 5% bigger baseball. Mm-hmm. And we had the pitchers come into our biomechanics lab. We used some high-level college and minor league pitchers, some big guys, and we had them throw. And the theory, Brian, which the data confirmed, is that when you throw the heavier baseball, you would think it might be more force on your elbow, but the heavier baseball, the arm moves slower. And the slower arm actually leads to less force. Yeah, like that little graph right there. The blue line, I didn't mean for TV to be a science show here, but
that's right.
Anyway, that blue line is the regular baseball, the amount of torque on the elbow. And the red, green, and purple are these varied baseballs of different weights and sizes. And as we thought, the amount of torque drops down a little when you throw one of these modified baseballs. So again, we throw a little heavier baseball. We're talking about switching from 5 ounces to 6 ounces. Mm-hmm. And what happens, the effect is the velocity on the radar gun goes down, the arm speed in the computer goes down, and the torque on the elbow goes down. And, you know, we've been trying for years to try to tell pitchers not to throw every throw as hard as possible, but this might be a way to kind of force the issue and lower the stress on the elbows.
It's funny, as you even first introduced this to me, I thought, wow, it makes sense, right? So a heavier ball, you do, like if you're throwing a football, you will engage different bigger muscles, and it reduces that whip action, because as you pointed out, no matter how big and strong you get, that ligament only gets so strong. So let me ask you, could pitchers tell when they were using a larger baseball or a heavier baseball?
They can. You know, it was a blind test, and we randomized the order for different people, and we gave them, you know, throw this ball for this inning and this ball for this inning, and they could kind of tell this one was bigger, this one was heavier. But you know, 1 ounce doesn't sound like much, but it did have a factor. You were talking about throwing a football. When you throw a 15-ounce thing or something like that, your mechanics would be different.
Right.
But besides looking at the stress, we looked at the mechanics as well, and the mechanics were very similar.
Now also,
these guys over here in that video are throwing like 1-pound balls, and it's not the same as throwing a 5 or 6 ounce ball as far as mechanics go.
And like with the driveline revolution, most of these guys are getting their velo by throwing a heavier ball, and this is nothing like a heavy ball. This is just slightly heavy, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
The secondary benefits are what I'm excited about. The 3 true outcomes have been swallowing baseball. Look, it's a sabermetric thing, but take a look at this. Late 70s, just to show the fans at home, home runs, strikeouts, and walks are 25% of offensive outcomes. That was in 1979, 23% way back then. So only 23%. It peaked at 35% in 2019. It's still at nearly 34%. So, Dr. Fleisig, correct me if I'm wrong, with a heavier baseball, velo is down a bit, strikeouts come down a bit, and doesn't the ball not fly as far? So home runs are down a bit. Do we know any of this yet?
No, we don't know any of this. Your theory makes sense. You know, again, my focus was trying to make it safer, trying to make less injuries. But if we make the ball, like you said, heavier, the velocities will be slower. Actually, the ball moved less as well, less break. And so would the batters hit more balls? There are a lot of different things that could, and would the ball go less far because it's heavier? So, Brian, a lot of things, you know, I'm saying make the ball a little heavier and a little larger to reduce the stress on the elbow. But then the manufacturers in baseball would have to think about how elastic to make the ball, and different factors they could do to manipulate the ball to get the outcomes they wanted. But I think in theory, you're right.
It's a fascinating idea. I'm all excited about it, but I have Al Leiter here, and I want to know, like, Al is a little more reticent to change. Is that fair to say, Al, sometimes? But Al pitched nearly 2 decades in the majors. Al, I wanted you to talk to Dr. Fleisig. Go ahead, ask whatever you want to ask right now.
So I'm going to start this with, Glenn, I respect you and all the work you've done. You know I've been down at your lab in 1989, my first surgery with Dr. Andrews, and everything you've done is the love of baseball and trying to keep throwers/pitchers healthy. My concern, and I guess my question to you is, of this study of yours of having increased weighted balls, how much throwing have these pitchers thrown? Are they only in the lab, and are they actually getting after it with 100% effort?
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Al. And also, to answer your question, this was a first study. This was a study in the lab. They had a few minutes to warm up with the baseball, so it was not a training or long-term effect. More research is needed before we could roll this out in a minor leagues or amateur thing. So here you can see pitchers being tested in our lab. That was actually a high school pitcher, and you were tested back in the day as well. But this is the first step. It's encouraging, and we need to do some more research to see things like you're saying, Al. What would be the effect of training with this ball for 1 week, for a month, whatever, because some of the factors we see in the immediate effects might go away. I still think the principle is the same, that the ball is heavier, it's not possible to throw it as fast, and therefore the forces will be a little less with the same mechanics.
All right, Al, tiny question.
All right, real quick. I appreciate all that you've done, and I know that it's definitely a problem for the game, and keep doing what you're doing.
That's it? All right. Thank you, Al. That was it. All right, another question. All right. I'm going to the outside. Dr. Fleisig, thanks so much for being with us here. I just wanted Al to weigh in on that, and we'll have a little more time as the season goes on, and this, again, literally could be a game changer. Dr. Fleisig, thank you so much.
Great seeing you guys.
The showdown is not meant to cause offense or harm. The viewer acknowledges any reliance on the accuracy or completeness of said content should be done at their own discretion. The host apologizes in advance for any affront as a result of personal attacks.
Time for another season of the Showdown. Brian Kenny here. We welcome in Rob Parker, who will be with us every single week because Rob is known for his outrageous predictions that, shockingly enough, often come true. I'll give you credit, Rob. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, BK. You know me. I'm always coming out swinging. I'm never going to hit a weak ground ball at all.
For a pundit, you're your exit velo. You don't care about the result. You're going to swing hard. If you whiff, you whiff. Which I'm giving you credit. Last year, you did not whiff. You came right out and said Diamondbacks, Rangers, the 2 pennant-winning teams, would not make the playoffs, you said last year. And you were right. You were barely right, but you were right. I'm giving you credit. There you go. All right, Rob.
I love it. That's it. Here we go. We got more.
Give it to me. Go ahead. Give me your first prediction.
I know you're excited about the Red Sox. A lot of people are. Garrett Crochet, whenever you could pick up a pitcher like that at the top of your rotation, a lefty with all that great stuff, I get why people are excited. But there are a lot of other issues that I'm not thrilled about when you talk about the Red Sox. Look at their bullpen. I mean, Hendricks and Chapman. I mean, are those the golden guys? I'll tell you this, Brian, right now, the pregame meal in the bullpen is decaf coffee, sodium-free bacon, and a chest X-ray. I mean, really? Are you going to win with that? 2 old guys in the bullpen.
Yeah, all right. That's it. So what do you say? You're saying they won't make the postseason. Red Sox will not make the postseason. Is that your prediction?
I am predicting they will not, N-O-T, make the playoffs. I still like the Yankees and Orioles better.
Yeah, I think the Red Sox make the postseason. I think they're a team on the rise. As I just chronicled, look, it's a wide open field, right? There's a lot of things that can happen. But Crochet has been a monster in the preseason. Buehler has looked very good. He also sets the tone. They build innings for that club. That's what they lacked last year. Bregman, even though I can't say $40 million is steep, he's an excellent addition, a very baseball-y guy, good contact skills. I'm not saying he's great, but he's a great addition for a team that already has, like, Wilyer Abreu and Jaron Duran and a lot of good young pieces, like Christian Campbell now wins a spot. Roman Anthony's on the way. They've got real position strength there, Rob.
Well, let me say this. Bregman would still be with the Astros if he was Alex Bregman of past. And the other thing, Walker Buehler, I saw him last year up close in L.A. I know he pitched better in the World Series and the playoffs and a couple
He's going to be a different guy now. You saw a different guy in the playoffs. Yeah.
He was bad, though, in L.A., and I might take Ferris Bueller over him right now.
Yeah, no, you're way off. He was much, much better. He struggled during the regular season. All right. You're also saying Juan Soto will struggle this year with the Mets. Really?
Yes. You know what? I think that sometimes you think you could just plug and play players and it's just going to be great. He was not great in San Diego. I know he made one all-star team there. He was not a great in San Diego. That didn't really work out for him there.
Yeah, briefly.
Okay,
no, I'm with you. He took a dip. He took a dip. But if there's one guy you can plug in for the next, 4 years, Rob, at the plate anyway, it's this guy. His worst year, he had 135 walks and 96 strikeouts. That's his worst year. His worst year, he had a 401 on base. So, no, Rob, I cannot imagine Juan Soto being bad for the Mets this year. Carlos Beltran had a bad first year with the Mets. Francisco Lindor was not great with the Mets first year, but not this guy. No way.
Yeah,
no way.
I'm looking at the history of the Mets when guys first get there, and it's not good usually the first year. And Francisco Lindor is a perfect example who really struggled. He got the big money, got there. Mets weren't winning. And you got to remember, this is a franchise that hasn't won a World Series since Moby Dick was a guppy. 1986 is a long time.
So you're right. Just to tell people, full disclosure, you're from Queens, so you've seen Mets free agents, guys who were great the year before, go to the Mets and just die. Like that has happened. That is the history. There's like a whole history of guys who have gone there and have been awful, including Beltran, who eventually was excellent, but year one was terrible. I'm saying that will not happen. This guy at the plate is too consistent, Rob. It's not happening.
And the other thing, too, last year in Yankee Stadium was perfect. He came out of the box with the game-winning hit, Game 1 against the Astros. I was in Houston for the opener, and then playing in Yankee Stadium, hit over 40 home runs for the first time. The crowd there, they loved him.
Crowd is going to be big here, too. He's going to play fine there. That's crazy. All right, you're also saying Dodgers won't repeat, which is not so outlandish given the 3 tiers of playoffs, but they're going to be a monster. Are you saying they'll be disappointing or they'll just get knocked off in the playoffs?
I just think they'll get knocked off, and I've seen this team last year. Everything worked out for them. They did wind up winning the World Series. Yeah. They look like they were dead against the Padres.
But they're much better. Rob, they're so much better.
Show up against really good teams. Can I give you 2 names?
Yeah.
2 names that stopped that Yankee train. Sandy Alomar Jr. in 97 hit a home run off Mariano. You remember that, 97?
Yeah.
Also, Miguel Cabrera showed up in 2003 and spoiled the Yankees as well. All I'm saying is great teams can get beat by somebody who should.
No doubt. But they're going to be like 105 wins, 110 wins. They're a juggernaut. They're so deep. Their bullpen is so deep, Rob. It's so much better. But can they get knocked off by the Braves or the Phillies in the playoffs? Oh, absolutely. Here's one that surprised me. You're saying Aaron Judge repeats as MVP. I thought you'd be a hater on Judge. You say he goes out and has another great year.
Yes, he's going to make up for that horrendous error in center field that will not define Aaron Judge. He's a great player. That was something that no one could even imagine even happened. You can see him take his eye off of it, BK, for a second.
Painful. I don't even like we're showing it. Get it off the screen. I don't want to see it. It's bad luck. I don't want to see it.
Moments.
I did not requisition that.
I love Aaron Judge to bounce back from that, have a great year, and be MVP again.
Look at you just being Mr. Optimistic in there. How about National League MVP? You know who it's going to be? While you're pumping your brakes all season long, Ellie De La Cruz. That's the MVP.
All right, I want to bet you chicken wings on this one. I want to bet you 10 all-flat Parmesan garlic with a Diet Coke because he will not be National League.
How about a nice meal in Queens, New York for old time's sake? We'll bet that. All right? You pick this one. No, let me pick the spot. I think I'll do better. Hey, by the way, check out Rob's most recent Inside the Parker podcast featuring me. Wow. Well, I'm on the podcast. And Joe Adele, 2 big StatCast guys. Look at that.
Big time, man. I appreciate you jumping on the podcast. Please listen, rate, subscribe. It's a fun listen.
Rob, you're the best. Thank you, Rob. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much, BK.